Hey, good afternoon. I'm Darren Magno, and on behalf of the Eggenberger family, just want to thank everybody for being out here today to show our support and love for the family. Specifically for your support over the last year for Heather and everyone in the family. Your calls, your notes, your visits mean more than you'll ever know. And thank you all for coming together to share our love and to celebrate our friend, our brother. Something's weird with this mic. Our neighbor. He's truly a once-in-a-lifetime son, a husband, a father, our John boy. I'm both humbled and anxious to be up here. Can we get a different mic? So I've tried to get enough tears and sobbing out of my system before this moment so that I can really honor my brother. I just rode the ferry over from Kingston, and there was this top room. It was empty. So it allowed me to sit in there and go over the speech, and I still cried. And the coolest part is anybody that walked by saw a 45-year-old guy crying, giving a speech to an empty room. Yeah, so I look cooler now somehow. Yeah, here we go. So I don't think I'll make it. That's in my speech, but I hope to. If I don't make it, I have my main man Reed. He's 9, and he's agreed to be my voice if emotions are a bit too much. I didn't struggle with what to share with you guys today. I asked Heather for an hour, and I expected that. I was excited to fill it. She said I'd be lucky to get 5 minutes. She said the same thing on the day of her wedding. So I struggle with what not to share. I know I can't fully adequately express my love for John and his family and this crew at this time, but I can tell a story or two to let you know. The amazing John that you knew is the same amazing guy that I grew up with and explored this world with. Here we go. So I may read from my notes more than I want to and avoid eye contact. That's just to keep me on track. My heart's filled with emotion, and I want to keep some of that down so I can let the best out and share it with you. Okay, chapter 1. So it gets a little bit better. So I was fortunate enough to speak with so many of you at John's roast, or as Heather likes to call it, her wedding day. I have to recall one story that I told on the memorable occasion because it's the first ever Jon Eggenberger sighting. On a yellow school bus at Incline Middle School, I was sitting in the back of the bus because I was a high schooler. I don't mean to brag, but we swung down to pick up John and the little middle school guys on our way to the mountain. So John was the protege of one Ryan Lassiter. Right here. Back street is back, all right. So they strutted on the school bus like pimped out middle schoolers. I remember the time I saw these 2 random kids walk onto a school bus, and this many years later, I'll never forget it. They were just that memorable. Their hair was slicked back with literal oil. They were dressed like rejected or aspiring Backstreet Boys. Ryan Lassiter, as we called him, Joey Fatone, or J.C. Chazé. He had a Fabio vibe sprinkled in. And baby Justin Timberlake in tow. I mean, look at those beautiful blonde locks, that baby face. Like they were so out of place on a Nordic ski bus, but perfect hair, stylish clothing, and that's just the way that Incline rolled. Everybody just tried everything where we grew up, and it was awesome. So I went years without seeing these 2 again. I had no idea who they were. They were in middle school. Again, and I was a really cool high school kid. Super cool. And I'm on the swim team as a senior. Again, cool. And Ryan Lassiter's there as a sophomore, so naturally John joined the team as well because they needed to keep the boy band together. And John, as a freshman, was a fish. This is when we really connected. His laugh, his giant smile, his love for life, his love for music, the outdoors, his friends, his love of Speedos. I mean, John, we all know, loves everything. He was easy to love back. He was such a stellar dude. So we would swim together for just 1 year. We won leagues. We placed in the state. And John, we all loved, I don't know why, swimming. But you shaved your body down, and John wouldn't shave his hair. That was like sacrilegious. But that's how beautiful his hair was. And that's how committed he was to it. And it was him and this team that made it so memorable. We didn't swim for the win or for the love of the sport. None of us particularly liked swimming. I don't think many of us swim anymore. I don't know if you've ever seen a high school boy in a Speedo. I don't know why you're laughing. It's like throwing chopsticks into a sock. I mean, it's just hokey and weird. Nobody should ever wear Lycra in public, Peter Gower. And nobody should ever put Lycra on a high school boy and put them in a pool. But we did it for the love of one another. We loved our team. There's a blank spot here to pause. Hey, so it was just for the guys who were on the team here today, Ollie and Ryan, Brendan and Nate. So many cool people. It was our sports family. And our coach Rob was a little bit crazy. He'd make us walk across the snow-covered village green in Tahoe in March, and he'd have us swim in our lake. We liked it because we didn't have to swim laps. We were in the lake. We hated it because you were getting in Lake Tahoe in March and April. But it was amazing just to be out there with a crew. It wakes up your soul, opens your eyes. So we already loved our hometown waters. If you've ever been to Tahoe, it's amazing. But these midwinter dips with our brothers made us addicts, always going in together or sending pics of us going in with one another wherever we were, whether we were away at college or deployed overseas, whatever it was. Dan would always make us wear weird shorts. Dan, I don't know why you did that to us, but it's the best. We'll always go in for one another, always have, and do that the rest of our lives. And that was just a couple of the countless great memories that I have with Jon. Always jamming with him. If anyone needs it, somebody that plays 6 chords. Andy always telling me to play one minor chord. I'm a good backup to somebody who's a real musician, but Jon would always humor me and play with me. It was incredible. Always takes care of our family. We'd always swim together. It's incredible. But for someone who cries less and is far better looking, Jon's best looking and oldest Tahoe friend. Don't be intimidated by his deep voice and his dashing good looks, his Hawaiian shirt. Peter's one of the best men you'll ever meet, and Jon's all-time best friend. Peter?
So the day before Jon and Heather got married, Jon handed out these glass mugs. You can see it in that picture up there, to each of his closest friends. Each mug had an engraving on it. Mine said, and still says, I have it in my cabinet, oldest friend. So I got to tell you, at the time, I was actually a little bit offended. I mean, I was 29. I was going gray at the time. A little grayer now, just a little bit. But then I realized, oldest friend, person with whom I've been friends with the longest. Jon and I became friends actually before either of us can remember. I think by all accounts, looking at the photos, it was sometime around 1985. Dan Ginger, feel free to correct me on that. We were about 4 years old, so these photos date back to the early 80s and some of the times that we spent together. If you want to know what Jon was like as a kid, spend some time with Jack and you'll get these magical moments of what he was like. It's pretty cool. Like Jack, he was witty, sarcastic, confident, and just immensely kind-hearted. That was Jon. From a young age, he was a gifted musician. I wasn't. He loved a good game of Super Mario Brothers and Zelda. Right? I didn't. I think we connected and became friends for life, because we loved playing outside and dreaming of things bigger than us. And luckily, Lake Tahoe was the perfect place for doing both of those things. In winter, we built mile-long luge courses and dreamed of being in the Olympics together, running down the luge course. We raced down ski slopes, dreaming of fame as pro skiers. Jon would come up to people on the ski lift and say, "Yeah, we used to ski stuff like straight down." We were snow plowing the whole way, I think. In summer, we built roads and lakes with Tonka trucks in my backyard. I dreamed of driving a real dump truck at that time and being on a construction site. I think Jon just dreamed of going inside and eating Tony's pizza. Of course, he was patient, as always, with me and my passion for Tonka trucks and make-believe construction sites, and played along together. We climbed granite boulders outside his backyard in Carnelian Bay, or in Crystal Bay. And to my dismay, he liked to slide down them. He didn't tell me that sliding down them was part of it. I had my shorts on, so I was dreaming of longer pants and softer ground. So middle school and high school brought different interests. I wasn't a swimmer. I played basketball and soccer. But we always seemed to reconnect, and where else but at Lake Tahoe. Some of my favorite memories, and I know my wife Stephanie's as well, is when Jon would come over and we'd go out onto the boat and have these early morning wakeboard sessions together. Jon would stop by the Grog and Grist, grab some breakfast burritos, meet out at the boat, go for a ski. I dream of those days again. I dream of Jon being in the back of the boat, ready for a wakeboard and saying, "Hit it, let's go." One more time. One of my favorite stories, I like to ride bikes. And I think it's only fitting that Dan taught me how to ride a bike, Jon's papa, when I was about 4 years old, on this literally probably 1,000-pound wrought iron bicycle outside my house. And I think it's also fitting that in 2014, Jon had this dream of riding his bicycle from Seattle to Portland in one day, 204 miles. So he trained like crazy leading up to that race in 2014. And then at 5:08 a.m. on July 12th, we left Seattle. 5:08 a.m. we left Seattle en route to Portland. The pace was steady. Not terribly quick, but it was steady. We were cruising. Just before 5 p.m., welcomed by Darren in his Speedo with his cowbells. You remember that? We made it to the last rest stop. Jon says, "Buddy, getting tired." "I know, buddy. We're almost there, man. We've got this. 50 miles to go. We've got this." At 10 p.m., 197 miles into the ride, 20 hours in the saddle, while riding along the west bank of the Willamette River in Portland, we realized that we missed the bridge to cross the river to get to the finish line, and we were lost. Jon says, "Buddy, you know what? We've ridden this far. Isn't that amazing? Let's just have Steph and Heather come in the car. They can pick us up. We can come back here in the morning. We'll just get back on the bike and we'll finish this ride." So I'm not going to use the exact words that I told him in that moment. But it went something like this. "Are you kidding me? We've ridden 197 miles. We've got 7 miles to go. We are not stopping right here. You're going to get your butt back in that bike, and we're going to cross that river, and we're going to get to the finish line tonight, today. We're going to finish this thing together." And so we did. We got back on that bike, and at 11:20 p.m., after 204 miles and 21 hours on the bike, we made it to the finish line. After that, Jon wouldn't let me forget that day. I think it was one of his proudest moments, and it was definitely one of my proudest moments as well. He dreamt of riding that far, and he did. And we did it together, and I'm so grateful to have been the one riding alongside him from Seattle to Portland, from childhood to adulthood, and from dreams to reality. Thanks for the ride, buddy. My oldest friend. I love you, man.
Miss Susanna?
Where's Jack? Right there. Okay, good. Thanks. Ooh. We got tissue up here? Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Heather. Okay. Thank you, Darren, and thank you, Peter. Hey, how are ya? As we all know, that was John's opening question. I thought I'd begin here. My name is Susanna, and for those of you who don't know, I'm John's mom. I have shared the privilege of parenting John with Don and Ginger, known to Jack and Gabby as Papa and Gigi, while they know me as Amma. Ginger is John's other mother, but I like to think of us as the moms, John's moms. Woo-hoo! Don and Ginger took John traveling, showing him the world. And there's a map of the world up there with push pins on it. Always bringing him safely back home, although recently I hear they had some real life adventures. Don was talking story the other night. I'd like to acknowledge and thank you all for being here and for bringing with you your love for John and your stories of your experiences with him, or he and Heather and their kiddos. I hope some of you will feel moved to share with all of us your Johnny experiences on the open mic. That way we fill in the blanks for one another, parts of his life that we missed. I'd like to thank you all too for the loving care you have shown for Heather, Jack, and Gabby, for your time and energy spent shopping for and providing food and meals, for helping with yard work, providing for house cleaning, making contributions through Caring Bridge, arranging play dates for the kiddos and excursions for the three of them, and more. John and Heather have a truly remarkable circle of family and friends. That would be you all. I particularly want to acknowledge Heather for what I can only describe as her courage and tenacity in the face of overwhelming loss. Her love is so big in her embrace of Gabby and Jack, as they too are living with loss so profound. I hold Heather in the highest regard, thinking of her as my daughter, making me another mother. Heather, Jack, and Gabby were with John in San Diego when he started experiencing seizures and was hospitalized. They were with him by Zoom, as were many other loved ones, and with him in his hospital room as well. Heather's mom, Kathy, her sisters Annalise and Heidi, Don, Ginger, and myself all rushed to be by their sides to be as much support as we might be. Heather, Jack, and Gabby held John's hands, talking and just being with him. Heather and I had the privilege of being there with our John boy as he was making his transition, as he was taking his last breaths. I was saying, "Go for the light, Johnny. Go for the light." And Heather, who had queued up songs that John loved, was having a hard time getting to play, technologically. At the last moment, in a very uncanny way, the music began, and the song that played was "Into the Light." Deep breath. Following John's passing, I was with dear friends on July 4th who invited me to a 4th of July celebration. We were on a paddle boat on a small lake in the Seattle area. There were homes all around the lake, and the neighbors were taking turns shooting off fireworks. As each firework ignited, it lit up the night, exploding with dazzling color and light reflecting in the water. I'd never seen anything like that. I sat amazed, watching the magnificent display, saying to John, "Go for the light, Johnny, jump into the light." I'd like to say that John is still with us. I say to myself and others that he passed into the light. His leaving has taught me that only the body dies, whether we call it energy, soul, or spirit. I believe that when we transition, we pass into larger dimensionality that I'm calling the light. To me, John is still with us in that light. Kathy, John's mom, asked me recently how I experienced this. I see John as being in a vast, all-encompassing, all-embracing, all-loving, almost incomprehensibly so, field of loving light, like the most subtle and gentle sunlight. Assuming that this is so, it means he can be with each and all of us all of the time, surrounding and enfolding us with his love. This field of gentle love light is particularly palpable around their home surrounding Heather, Jack, and Gabby. Some years ago, John's papa, Don, called me when he and I were both experiencing challenges. He asked if I thought we were being poor role models for John. I responded by saying no, because when we are knocked down by life, we get up and keep stepping. Heather, Jack, Gabby, Don, Ginger, myself, and all John's family and friends, we're getting up and going, stepping forward as best we can. Whether we know it or not, we are each and all being supported and perhaps guided by Johnny's love light. I believe that Johnny's church was the church of the earth. He loved being outside in nature, whether it was skiing, snowboarding, bicycling, climbing, camping, throwing the football with Jack, or camping. As we all know, one of his ways of celebrating life was jumping into the water, whether it was a stream, a lake, the sound, or the ocean. Jumping into cold water enlivened him, bringing him back to at oneness, his own true nature. Years ago, maybe 18 years, John was visiting a friend at Lake Washington. Maybe that friend is sitting in the audience, I don't know. He was sitting at the end of a dock, playing his guitar and composing a song. An eagle swooped down right in front of him, catching up a fish and looking at him straight in the eye as it rose out of the water, flying off with its catch. When he described this experience to me, I told him he had eagle medicine. 2 days after John passed, in the wee hours of the morning, I had a profound dream. I was standing in the east at the edge of a meadow, holding Johnny full-sized in my arms, looking out over Lake Tahoe. Excuse me. The meadow was surrounded by a perimeter of ponderosa pine trees with an expansive view of the lake and mountains on the other side. I started slowly walking with John through the beautiful meadow of tall grasses and sweet, scented wildflowers. When I reached the edge of the meadow overlooking the lake, I gently laid Johnny down on the grassy slope. At this point, he started to grow smaller and smaller in size, shrinking until he was as a toddler. Then off to the south there appeared an eagle. The eagle flew slowly down, gently picking John up and carrying him off to the north into the light. In the month after Johnny passed, I was visiting with family on their ranch at the base of the Ruby Mountains in Nevada. My sister Annie and I were up in Lamoille Canyon by the beaver ponds when a red-tailed hawk appeared and started circling above us. I got my pages mixed up. Only about 15 or 20 feet above us, which was very close for a red-tail, and calling out repeatedly. Annie and I looked at one another and simultaneously said, "That's John!" Off to the left, there came an answering call, and another full-size red-tail came flying with 2 fledglings. We threw our arms open, and I said, "It's Johnny, letting us know he'll always be looking after Heather, Jack, and Gabby." I hear John when my mind grows quiet, like when I'm in the zone or walking in nature or meditating. Somehow the thought just came to my mind, like his daddy Don doing endos down the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon, being in the zone. I don't hear him with my ears, but more like a thought arising in the middle of my head. The first time I heard him, I had been sitting before an altar I made for him with pictures of he and Heather, Jack and Gabby, and all things from nature that he loved. I had been telling him that I really miss talking with you. Then my mind fell silent as I gazed at the flame of a candle I had lit for him. Into that quiet came his voice saying, "This is what I look like now, Mama." In the first months after he passed, John played every single sun song known in my mind. "Here comes the sun, little darling. Sun, 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 here it comes. And you are the sunshine of my life." Then, when I was really down, he'd play, we will rock you." Or he'd heard me sing this, supporting him one day when he was done. "Take your passion and make it happen. You will come alive. You'll be dancing through your life." Okay. When he wanted me to cool down, he'd play, and still plays, believe it or not, Pachelbel. He has communicated many things over the last months, and most recently when I shared I felt nervous about speaking before all of you. I don't know why. You all love Johnny so well. You got this, Mom. Shortly after John passed, Gabby asked me, "Where did my daddy go?" I responded saying, "He went into the light." She said, "Is my daddy the sun?" Seriously, you said that, huh? I said, well, you could think of him that way. Something in my tone of voice led her to ask, is he a star? I then said emphatically, yes, he's a star. Gabby then asked, can he beam down on me? I said, yes, he's beaming down on you right now and will always be beaming on you and Jack. You'll come to feel him ever in your hearts. Today, especially to Jack and Gabby, I'd like to say that your dad will live on as a special light and warmth in your hearts. To Charlotte, Abigail, Daniel, and Amelia, to Colin and Cora, to Sadie, Lacey, Lissa, Clary, JT, and Willa, and to Nicholas, all of our young people, your Uncle John will be ever present in your hearts. And to Jack and Gabby, all of you, your dad or uncle is a light shining around you. You may see him in the rainbow, or in the light playing on the water, or as a beautiful sunset, or on the wing as an eagle, or hear him in the rustle of leaves, or in a song. He loves hearing you sing, Gabby, and hearing Jack play the piano. Or you may feel him as a gentle breeze gently touching your skin. Love comes as a whisper, or as a kindness given or received, in listening, caring, and sharing. Love is all around. Johnny is around us in the light. He always reaches out, never meeting a stranger, always making a new friend, and caring for Heather, Jack, and Gabby, as well as his family and friendship circle, saying, hey, how are ya? Also says, nice, right, nice. Our gathering together in celebration of John's life, with all appropriate honoring of him, is both inspiring and a testament of him and our love. It will bring an opening as together we share the love that John embodied, and through us is still, I lost my place, and through us still, it will bring an opening as together we share in the love that John embodied, and through us is still sharing as he lives on in all our hearts, our minds, and through our actions, caring for one another. And then just a song that some of you have heard that I sing to loved ones. And I sang for John to welcome him into his newly transitioned life. Happy birthday to you, you. Happy birthday to you, John boy. Happy birthday to you. Was ye. Oh, yay, yay, yay. Happy birthday, yay, yay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you, Johnny, we all love you. We welcome the love you shared with us. We celebrate you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. I'd like to give it up for the next speaker. Who's the next speaker? Thank you.
So how do you follow that act? Darren, I need you to open for me. One of John's favorite things was stand-up comedy. Come on, Darren, come and tell us a joke. I need a little space here. This is one of my bugs.
You want a quick joke?
Yeah. He's got a lot of them.
Why aren't koalas real bears? No, someone can spoil it if you know it. It's pretty fun. They don't have the qualifications. Here you go.
Thank you. Okay, I've made some notes so I won't be overcome by the enormity of this moment. I thought my tears might be empty, my reservoir, but there's still a lot. I've been overwhelmed by the death of John. It means so much to me that you're all here because he left a little piece of himself in each of you. And when I see you, I see a little piece of him. It helps. I spent many sleepless hours wondering what I could contribute here today. We all have different memories of his shiny, loving spirit, a thoughtful, loving son, a wonderful father, a great husband, and an amazing friend to so many people. Not much more to say, but I will anyway. John started his life in a cottage overlooking Donner Lake with an American Indian midwife who sang an American Indian chant, bringing him into the world. He was special from the beginning. He showed us his swimming skills and love of water before he was a month old in the Carson City Hot Springs. We dragged him to Yosemite every chance we had, from being in a backpack to carrying one. Starting out in diapers and pull-ups, hiking and camping in the high country, later rock climbing with friends and teachers like Ron and Ginger. And always the swimming in the icy cold waters of Lake Tahoe, Cathedral Lake, and the Tuolumne River. He had a love of nature and the outdoors that was born in the granite of the High Sierras. And then he was lucky enough to find a beautiful woman in a laundromat with many of the same passions. With his mother's permission, Ginger and I hauled John to exotic places. Preschool in Hawaii, flying into Thailand when he was 8 years old by himself to meet us after our climb up to Everest Base Camp. Traveling deep into Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Bali, Lombok, Gili Air, and Sumatra, across one of the most dangerous straits of ocean in the world on a rented fishing boat, to Komodo Island, where 14-foot carnivorous lizards roamed around our cottage at night looking for food. In between, we found ourselves in the Amazon, Fiji, Alaska, Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, not to forget the cold, wet hike to Machu Picchu high in the Peruvian Andes, and our adventures around Lake Titicaca. And then there was John's scuba certification in Fiji. We filled in the blanks by exploring the West from British Columbia to the Mexican border. And then we handed John off to Heather, and the second part of his life began. So he did manage to get an education in all of that movement. And while growing up in Incline, 10 minutes away from the bottom of the ski lift and the beach, he managed to graduate from high school with his buds and came to UW, and that was it. That was the end of our chapter. I want to give a quick thanks to Peter, Ryan, and Darren. John's best buds. They helped shape John's view of the world and have been a huge support to me and us. In this time of I should have, I could have, I might have, I leave you with a thought, a Willie Nelson song. It's live every day like it's your last day. One day you will be right.
Hi, my name's Ginger. I have just a few words to add to what Dan said. When I met Dan, he came with baggage. He came with two sons, a 2-year-old and a 12-year-old. I thought, oh boy, instant family, since I had never stopped long enough to think about having children of my own. So it was my good fortune to be welcomed into this relationship of father and son. I quickly found my role not as a stepmom, but as a teacher and mentor. He already had 2 parents. It was fun introducing this little towhead to what life had to offer. As Dan said, the travels shaped him and were schooling in itself. The sports, either hanging from a climbing rope or blowing bubbles under the ocean. John embraced it all. As it turns out, John taught me along the way in how to be open, loving, patient, accepting of others, the importance of staying connected to friends and family, and above all, how to cook. Thank you, John, for being you. I love you and miss your phone greeting when you call and say, hey, what's up? Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Lane, John's weirdest looking friend.
Maybe most inappropriate friend. One thing I'd like to mention about Peter's story, I don't think anybody knew that the 7 days of chafing that followed the 204-mile ride, where John would called me up and said, how'd the ride go? And it was immense, but I can't walk. So all things have a price, great or not. For those who don't know me, my name's Lane. I knew Johnny for the last 20 years from our first day working together at Pyramid. Microphone's got problems. In that time, we had a lot of adventures. We've had a lot of fun. We've grown up. I was in his wedding. He was the person who married me and my wife. We've held each other's kids as they were born. I struggled a lot with what to say today, how to condense that 20 years of amazing friendship into a few moments. I could share the stories of our journeys and our travels and enjoy a few laughs. But what I'd like to do instead is talk a little bit about what I learned from him, the type of person he is, and what made him so very special. A very honest statement is, I've never met another Johnny. And the difference, the thing that made him the most unique, comes down to the amount of effort he put into relationships. Johnny put so much effort into relationships. That's why this room is filled with such amazing people. All of us were blessed. All of us were blessed to know Johnny and be a part of Johnny's world. When he decided that he liked somebody, he just made it happen. We all have relationships. But Johnny treated them like living, breathing things, putting that extra effort into feeding and growing them. When I first got to know Johnny, my natural self, probably like a lot of 20-something men, friendly but standoffish, easy to talk to, but not very forthcoming. And Johnny wasn't like that at all. Just by being around him, I changed and I grew. I developed the ability to create and foster deep, meaningful relationships uh, by being in one with him. He put that extra amount of time and energy into every relationship that he had. I think the best, most disarming Johnny thing, his most simple but effective tool, was the hug. Johnny is and always will be a hugger. His default setting was just to hug. For lots of men, especially for lots of men, this is not their default setting. It's the way you greet your mom, maybe your kids, probably not your dad, definitely not your buddies, but it was totally his default. And when we would get together and we'd see each other for the first time that day, there's this Johnny expression that would come across his face. The word buddy echoed, arms stretched out wide. He could project it from across the room. He could stand up here and tell somebody in the back, you have to bring it in. You just have to bring it in. Now, I'm much better of a hugger than I was. And I learned from him that a hug says something. It says you mean something. It's deeper. It's an affirmation of belonging. It lets somebody know you want them around and you miss them when they're not. John came with emotional intelligence, something I wasn't really good at. Specifically, as a man, it's okay to dig deep and lay it out on the table. And it's okay to ask for help. Most dude conversations are discussions about how's it going, dreams for the future, what are you doing this season, what do you got plans for, how's the family. John had more than that. And my normal emotional intelligence consisted of 3 levels of emotions: normal, happy, and angry. And John was well armed with way more than that. John had all the feels. He understood there were nuances to emotion. He wasn't afraid to delve into them. He had disappointed and frustrated, elated, surprised, relieved, anxious, words that I had never applied to myself, my own emotions. But he shared his struggles and his regrets and his challenges and his joys. He shared them all, and I learned from him what that level of communication does to a relationship. And now it's a trademark of some of my best relationships. If you're here today, you probably know that Johnny is the king of the cold call. It's one of the forms of extra special effort he put into relationships. The phone call, it's the middle of the day and my phone is ringing. It either has to be spam or it's Johnny. And if it's Johnny, he's driving somewhere and he's calling me. He would call just to say, hi, hey, I'm thinking of you. Looking forward to seeing you. I want to tell you how great you are. Need to share something cool with you. After I had this amazing message on my phone. Just called to wish you happy Father's Day. And tell you how amazing it is to be your friend. While practicing this, that got me every time, even if I didn't read it out loud. But it's a gift, that message. To have it to listen to hear his voice one more time, but also to hear him talk about the way he felt about me. And that was the point. That was a lesson. when you text or call somebody out of the blue to let them know, hey, I'm thinking about you, or I just want you to know that I'd love to see you soon, it's a gift that you're giving somebody else a little bit of time and effort. And that's what Johnny was so amazing at doing, was just giving a little bit of time and effort to his relationships. When I'm drained, I reach for the phone to zone out to something silly, dumb. But when Johnny had extra time, he reached for the phone to do what it was intended for, which is to call somebody, to let them know that he was, thinking about them. And he'd probably tell 10 people in a row, but, that was his way. We had amazing moments in our relationship, not just Johnny, but this great big collective of a family. Johnny especially tried hard to make those moments happen. It didn't always work out. And there's this running joke that his closest friends would share, which is that Johnny would often have to bail on us at the last minute. Not a bad thing, not a critique at all. And the joke was that he done it again. He had double or triple booked himself, spread himself too thin. But as his friends, we weren't upset by this. And it was more laughable than anything, because we understood without saying it that the reason, more likely than not, was he was putting that extra special effort into somebody else. Maybe his dad, his kids, Heather, someone we didn't know, but being his friend means able to share. The point, though, is the double and triple booking is a side effect of how much effort he put into creating moments and developing those relationships. He was always looking to create a moment. That didn't mean planning a big trip or a flashy vacation. Some of the best moments I had with John were simply a beer, a meal, a video game, even just talking to him on the phone. A regret. I don't feel like I worked as hard at our relationship as he did. I know he felt loved, and I know that he knew that I was there for him. But I regret not taking advantage of his friendship as much as I possibly could have while he was here. There is a moment, though, a moment I'm going to share with you guys, and I'm forever thankful for. Johnny was able to receive something his friends and his wife were able to do for him after all he had done for us. And it's a moment I will never forget and will always cherish. Years ago, he had called me to tell me that he was taking Heather on a trip of a lifetime, and he was pumped about it. He was going to take Heather to Bali, Indonesia, to visit his friend Darren and Moon. Immediately after I hung up with John, I started a text chain with his friend Eddie and Micah. And saying, we need to go to Bali, and we need not to tell Johnny that we're going to go. And that's what we did. We did tell Heather, because that's a good idea. But she did an amazing job at keeping it from him. Micah, Eddie, and I arrived a couple of days of Heather and John. And we spent some great time with Darren and Moon in their outdoor kitchen and their infinity pool. On the day that Johnny and H were to arrive, Darren left to go pick them up from the airport. In the backyard of the villa that Darren had was a gate in the wall that surrounded the villa. It's a wall that you couldn't see through. Micah and Eddie were in the pool, casually hanging on the side, while I had moved to the gate by the door. When Johnny came through the gate, he went from tired, weary traveler to little kid on Christmas Day, as he gleamed me, then them, then me again, and I will never forget the look on his face, that look of surprise, then elation, realizing his friends had come all the way to be with him and to see Bali. His reaction, pure Johnny, a fully clothed cannonball into the pool. But it's the look of emotion that crossed his face. That's a moment I'm very grateful we were able to give him, the one that meant something. This photo behind me was taken in the North Shore, in the North Shore of Oahu, on the rooftop at Darren's rental house during Johnny's bachelor party weekend. The people in it are Johnny's groomsmen and best man. Most of these people, except Ryan and Peter, were present in Bali. And the relationship I have with these men now are the best gift Johnny ever gave me. Some of my most cherished relationships, and a credit to Johnny's character as a person. Thank you.
Kyle and Jody, John's most normal friend, and Jody.
Me first, yeah, I guess we introduce her. That was really something. That was lovely, Lane. I'm not sure I want to follow that, but you know, it is what it is. My name's Jody. This is Kyle. Hello, everybody. Sucks to be here, but it's amazing to be here. Do you know what I mean? Does everybody have that feeling? Yeah. I was privileged enough to meet Jon freshman year of college. We went to University of Washington. Go Dogs. Cougs suck, right? Actually, if you want to go back to the previous slide, this is Kyle's stuff up here. Yeah, Jon and I met freshman year. We ended up rooming together as roommates for 4, maybe 5 years. I don't remember the exact time frame. Started junior year, we started rooming together. We formed a band. I'll tell you about that in a second. I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said by everybody here? His energy, his light, his humor, his ridiculousness. He's just the teddy bear that everybody wanted to be around, and I feel so privileged to have had him in my life. We roomed together when he met Heather, and no one has really talked about this. Don mentioned it, but I'm happy to share the story of when Jon met Heather. A couple caveats with the story. Number one, I have a notoriously bad memory. As my bandmates, we discovered last night, I remember very little in detail. And number two, I have not fact-checked this story. But here's my recollection of how Jon met Heather. We were living together. This was junior year at the UW. Jon goes to the laundromat to do his laundry. He comes back and he says, I met a girl, right? And when you're 20, 21 years old and somebody says, I met a girl, you say, okay, great. Don't think much of it. And I said, that's great, man. How'd you meet her? And he said, well, we were both doing laundry. And actually, I'm going to pause the story right there. And I'm going to tell another quick story that will help explain this. So Kyle, come over here. So Jon had a whole series of crappy cars, particularly when you're in college. We all did. So in this story, Kyle is Jon driving his BMW. Now, this BMW was the biggest piece of garbage you've ever seen. I'm in the passenger seat of the BMW, and the passenger seat was broken, so it actually angled at like a 45-degree angle as just the normal. Yeah, exactly. So it's like I'm staring into his face the whole time. That was the car. Okay. So you met a girl. Great. How did you meet her? Well, I walked up to her, and I couldn't think of what to say, so I said, what kind of car do you drive? That's not it. I drive a BMW. Was that fairly accurate? Yes! I mean, you couldn't in the back. Heather said, I didn't ask you what kind of car you drove. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. Oh my gosh. So flash forward a little bit. We decided to start playing music together. I was reluctant to do so because he and I, though, of course, of the same age, we both were musicians. He much more accomplished than I. We had different sense of music. I was really into punk rock and ska punk and that really fun stuff in the early aughts. He loved bands like Puddle of Mud and Hoobastank, which tells you what he was into. Oh yeah, this guy in the front knows what I'm talking about. So we ended up playing music together. We had so many wonderful times. We formed a band called The Morning After. Kids, don't look that up. Eric and Drew over here were our lovely bandmates. You can see all of us young guys, with the exception of Eric, who was not young, still not young. But we had so many incredible times. We played far-flung locations like Pullman, and we traveled all over the state. We met these goobers. Kyle will tell you more about that. And I mean, it was just, imagine all the things that his lifelong friends described. Now imagine being in a very small car or a van traveling to these band concerts. It was just nothing but incredible times. I do have another quick anecdote. We were going to band practice one day, and you know, when you're 22 years old or whatever, and you're going ready to play punk rock, you want to get yourself all excited. It's like, all right, John, you're in charge of the tunes tonight. We're driving to band practice. We got like a 20, 30-minute drive. Put on something cool to get us amped up. What does he put on? He puts on a Prairie Home Companion. Yes, Garrison Keillor. The least exciting and pump-up music you can possibly think of. Lake Wobegon. Anyway, so that's the types of things that we had to look forward to, and all of our incredible band memories. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to say. I'm gonna give one more note. You got something you want to interject?
You missed two important things, Jody.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
We haven't talked about, but these are kind of themes throughout.
Yeah.
Two important things. One would be the hair.
Yeah.
And in many cases, Heather's role in the hair, as we've got documented over there on the right. I'd say that was definitely a thing. And the other one were the T-shirts.
Yeah.
And his collection of ironic and mildly PG-13 T-shirts. Up here, we've got two tickets to the gun show and a few others. But it seems like he had the enviable collection of T-shirts.
He did.
Definitely.
He did. Yeah, this is actually a lovely one up here. I don't know if you can see it in the back, but Heather has a Swiss Army knife cutting John's bangs. And when I pulled this photo out of the photo album to put together this slide here, I had handwritten notes on the back, and it was a quote from Heather saying, "I couldn't see his eyes," hence the Swiss Army knife bang trim mid-song. Anyway, so I have nothing but incredible memories of the guy. You know, what a beautiful human. And I just look around and so many faces I don't know. And that makes me so happy because everyone knows that energy and that joy that he brought to everybody around him. And even back then, I knew that when he would say, "Hey, I've got a buddy coming to town," meaning one of his old friends from back home, whoever it was, or I'm inviting some new folks from the Pyramid Crew, whoever he had around him, he just had this like black hole energy of pulling in the coolest, most interesting people you could possibly meet. So it doesn't matter who was coming. If Johnny knew them, they were going to be just an outstanding person and so much fun to hang out with. So I miss you, buddy.
So Jody and I kind of agreed to do a kind of a joint thing because, you know, in general, what we're covering is kind of that music chapter of John's life, and be it the punk rock and Prairie Home Companion stuff, or the chapter that also a lot of you, especially the Pyramid Crew, know of, Johnny Spoons. You're all laughing. That's right. So, you know, when I think about Johnny Spoons, it's funny. One of the first things that comes to mind is my oldest daughter. When she was, 3 or 4 years old, she had a little bit of a speech impediment. We'd go on trips to see my family. We were going to Spokane, and if she, stole your chair, it was "I stole your pot." So we'd drop her off at daycare, and she'd be explaining to the daycare teacher about how she had this amazing visit from Uncle Poons, and how much fun Uncle Poons was, and that required some additional narration to explain to the daycare teacher what all that meant. But the Johnny Spoons sort of era, it for me, it sort of epitomizes and defines the guy that I know and love. And so Johnny and I became friends when he was in TMA with these guys, and at that time, honestly, he was another one of the fraternity of musician friends that I had, and that was about where it ended. I thought he was a great guy, but I was very selfish and focused on trying to do my own music thing, and at my last show with my band was also TMA's last show, and so that was kind of a nice little way to close stuff out, and we closed out that chapter of our lives together. And after that is really when I got to know John, and we became what I would consider close friends. Johnny Spoons helped me find my own way as I shifted my focus to the next chapter of what I would wanted to do just with my life. I was focused on getting married and moving to Seattle and attempting to figure out what a career was. And meanwhile, Johnny Spoons spent his time pining over this girl named Heather, and he was moving out of his bromance with Jody. I believe they were roommates for 4 years, 5 years? Way too long for two dudes to not hate each other after cohabitating for that long. And he was expressing himself with music after I stopped, and he was doing it in ways that frankly made me a little jealous. That Johnny Spoon's music was really authentic, and it was beautiful, and it was 100% John. It seemed like he played even more shows and was out there more than even when he was in TMA. He was at Kate's Pub, Kona Kitchen, our friend Isaiah Vering's backyard every year, and of course he was at Pyramid a lot. And the one thing that always kind of puzzled me is how somebody that brightened everybody else's day so much could also write some sad and melancholy songs. And in the last month or so, I've gone back and I've listened to all those songs, and I've been listening to that music. And I realized that those songs and that music and what's contained in them, that's how John processed melancholy and sadness. He took it, all that stuff that not only does he deal with it, but we all do, okay? And some of us, myself included, we kind of keep that stuff in, and many times it can eat us up inside. John didn't let it eat him up. He took it and he turned it into something beautiful, and then he gave it back to us. So as we were kind of getting ready for all of this, we found the Johnny Spoon's archives, the collection of it, and if you haven't grabbed a card in the back corner there, do it, or point your phone here to the little spoon code. All of his acoustic stuff is on every streaming service, so you just scan it and then figure out which streaming service you've got, and you've got Spoons in your pocket. It's all there. I'm hoping that on days where maybe there's some melancholy and some sadness, or you just want to hear his voice, you want to have a flashback to a night at Kate's Pub, it's there when you're ready. In the last 11 months, I've also seen more Johnny Spoons moments, which really surprised me. I saw a dude playing Jack Johnson with no shoes on. That kind of, made me laugh. I can't remember how many times John played in like November with no shoes on, like in a bar, but he did. I've seen Jack playing piano. You're getting good, bud. That's awesome. Keep going. Even I think breaking out your dad's guitar. And my favorite moment, I wasn't even there. Last August, and I say I mean everybody that knew John as a musician, our dear friend Andy Rumsey visited Heather, Jack, and Gabby. And he sat down in the backyard with that acoustic guitar that's on display back there. And he played music. And he brought joy in that moment to them. So I'm super excited and honored to turn it over to Andy. And he's going to play some music for us and hopefully brighten our lives a little bit like Johnny Spoons did. Oh, is that your phone?
I've played a lot of concerts in my day. I've played in front of Steven Tyler and J-Lo, some other folks, and this is one of the more nerve-wracking ones I've ever had. I'm going to play some of John's music for you, and I'm going to play some of mine. And is this loud enough for you? It's good? A little bit up. That better? All right. It's an honor to be here with all of you, and I've been extremely humbled listening to the stories that you all have of my friend John. Your friend John. I was telling Heather last night, I was trying to rewrite the lyrics for a tune that I thought would be good for this occasion. I didn't know how to finish them. I said I'd wait for the whispers. And they came this morning. I've got them here. And I don't know exactly what I believe or where we go when we're not here anymore, but I believe in a magic. There is a magic somehow. Because some of these lyrics have essentially already been said. So I'm going to get this going and I'm going to try to do Johnny proud. I remember Green Lake days and all that meant to me. We just laughed and swing, and I knew everything. I'd do anything to compromise. To keep those tears from your eyes. Was that really me? We go hiking in Yosemite, stupid dope and cocaine. Been around this world more than twice. We never compromise. Made us great and made us fly. You make my world spin around and around. You know, we're both a little crazy. You keep me grounded when I get out in the air. When I get dark inside, you got sunshine in your hair. I need you here. And I'm sitting here, it's 3 p.m. My shades are drawn, and all I want is for you to call me. I'm hungover and I can't tell if life is good or I'm in hell. Just green like days don't pass you by. I'll stay with you through all your life. And I'm not ready for the end. I swear to God, you're my best friend. You make my world spin around and round. You know, we're both a little crazy. You keep me grounded when I get all in the air. When I get dark inside, you got sunshine in your hair. I need you here. Go round and round, yeah, we're all a little crazy. You kept us grounded when we got out in the air. When we got dark inside, you had sunshine left to share. Yeah, we miss you here. He tunes his guitar differently than I normally do. It was a challenge figuring out how those songs went, and it was a really fun challenge. 'Cause it's like you start thinking a little more about how your friend's mind worked. It's like, how did they do this? I do this, yeah, I know what I'm doing, but how did they do what they did? And so I didn't play that as well as he did, but it was fun to play. I'm gonna play another one of John's here. Let me tune up. Just pretend you're Kate's pup. Just got to go up to A. You don't need it. I think that might have been a joke from John. I get it. Get it. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen your face, 'cause you're so gone. I do my best just to cope with it, but it's been so long. And we got the world coming, but the separation's killing me. We're 6 degrees. I know you well enough to get us song in, but I can't have no way. And so I hop a train at 4 a.m. and ride around the moon. Make the day to reality just to look at you. I wanna see my days away, I wanna make them pass by until I see you in the blink of the night. And it's been so long, and I can't tell you on the sheets all the got of memories. I feel so brave. And so I made plans to hop a train right around the moon. Hop a train to reality, Mr. People. I wanna see my days away, wanna make them pass by until I see you in the break of the night. And so I hop a train at 4 a.m. and ride around the moon. Make it back to reality, just away from your home. I wanna see my days away, wanna make the best flight until I see you in the blink of an eye. Whoa, yeah, And this is John's way of like, no, here, play mine. I'll tune this up. You know, Kyle mentioned that John had a way of processing some of the darker emotions that come up, for all of us. And it was actually one way in which he and I bonded. we would share our challenges with mental health sometimes. And just knowing that there was someone that you could pick up the phone and call at 4 a.m. usually meant that you didn't have to make that call. And he was one of those people for me. And we would share strategies just for trying to stay up in this challenging world. And they helped, and he helped. So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, Jon, it's a good joke. He broke my string, right? That's good. And now I'm thinking, was it you that made my drive shaft fall out of my truck on the way over? Because that happened. But it was worth it. And despite having a truck I can't drive right now, not knowing how I'm going to get home, yeah, it has not soured this experience one bit. It was worth it. If all 4 wheels fell off that thing, this would have been worth the journey. I would have walked the rest of the way. It was the last mile, but still, I would have walked that mile. Mike, how about the capo that's on the guitar I planned on playing? This song's by request. Jack requested this song. This is one of mine called The Garden. I'm happy to play this for you, bud. The last time that I saw your dad, Jack, was when we all got to play music together. That's something I'm going to carry with me forever. It's really special to me.
Would you ever testify in my defense? Help me find some recompense. Give me strength beyond the normal sense and then some. Thought you could have been the one to marry me, but now you're more likely to bury me with nothing but the memory of your heavy hand. I've been searching after something, I've been tracking down a feeling, and when I finally found it, it took me out of the garden. Well, he was Mother Nature's own original hater, the first of the greater, the mouse that we know. And she been held hostage by conditional context, traditional mindset to any tied her up in knots and knots and knots. She was searching after something, she was tracking down her feeling. And when she thought she finally found it, she got kicked out of the garden. You to come in, but wipe your feet, you're far more than welcome. Come heaven or hell come, but you know you've been good to me. And you don't wanna be like that or see the things that I see. As long as you got your memory, can you lay yourself back down and get some sleep? I've been searching after something, yeah, I've been tracking down a feeling. And when I finally found it, we got kicked out of the garden. Now I'm searching after something, I've been tracking down a feeling. And when I thought I finally found it, And I was searching after something. I've been tracking down a feeling. And when I finally found it, I got kicked out of the garden. I got kicked out of the garden.
This next song is originally called The Slow Vibration. It was inspired by one of my favorite comedians. I won't give you the whole quote. But punchline of this joke is actually quite beautiful. He talks about how all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration. That there is no such thing as death, but life is only a dream, and we are the imagination of ourselves. And John had a wonderful imagination. So I waited for the whispers on this song. Can't help to think that somehow what was said here today, this afternoon, somehow made its way to me this morning. All of your words. Like I said, I think there is a magic out there. I think John had quite a lot of it, but he never kept it for himself. Not once.
Heart so big I stopped and spoke to you, and called you back to him to teach him all that you knew. For he forgotten what it was like to be pure and true. I look for you in words that are not there. The memory of a friend who shows us how to care. You shone upon us a brilliant light, more than rare. And to believe in the love that could save us, I'll build a home in the image you gave us. And to believe in love that could save us, I'll build a home in the image you gave us. Make a peace with knowing we will meet when the sun goes down to kiss my tired feet. You made my story, you made my life more complete. To believe in the love that could save us, I'll build a home in the image you gave us. And to believe in a love that could save us. I'll build a home in the image you gave us. To believe in a love that could save us. I'll build a home in the image that you gave us. And to believe in a love that could save us. I'll build a home in the image you gave us. So let me play your guitar, Danny.
Thank you, Andy. Jon respected you immensely as a musician and friend, and I appreciate you representing the huge part of his life since he was such a talented musician. And thank you to each of you for being here and the support you've shown our family and those of you who have helped put this together. Gabby wanted to be up here with me. I met Jon when we were in college in 2001. Thinking back to the first impression of Jon and how true that impression was through time. It was his humor and his boldness that initially drew me to him. He chose to take a seat directly next to me in the laundromat when there were 20 empty chairs around the room. I tried my best to keep studying and ignore him, but he kept talking to me. The twinkle in his eye, his easy smile, and his ability to make you feel important was quickly evident. He was wearing his green Shasta Mountain Guide shirt that I still have today, that's over there. And that outdoorsy aspect caught my eye. His sarcastic humor and his ability to poke fun at me made me laugh. I felt like I had known him for a long time, but I just met him. He was the perfect blend of cheesy, masculine, funny, selfless, witty, smart, and so kind. Shortly into our first weeks of dating, his best Seattle friend said, "You know you're dating the nicest guy in the world, right?" And he was right. Jon proved that early on, and until the day we tragically lost him. Jon was genuinely nice, so nice and welcoming to everyone. He believed wholeheartedly and unapologetically in the more the merrier philosophy. Whether it was making friends with strangers in line, befriending the grocery store clerks, inviting essential strangers over for dinner, which happened consistently through our 21 years together, or wanting as many kids over to play at our place with Jack and Gabby as possible. In fact, it was difficult to find one-on-one time with him on our honeymoon because he was so busy befriending all the strangers at our resort. He was the best at maintaining friendships. You're probably gonna hear a lot of things I'm saying that have been already said, but that just shows he was consistent. I was always baffled every Mother's Day and Father's Day how many friends, young and old, he'd call to wish them a happy day. And we all knew he'd make a call, no texting for Johnny. He was a self-declared caller. And that is what I heard over and over again that was different about him. And people loved it, that he'd continue to call through the years. Jon traveled a ton thanks to his dad and Ginger. He saw so many spectacular places and cultures, much more than many of us will ever experience. I was lucky to benefit from his love of comfort and comfort of traveling. Jon was the best to travel with. I felt safe with him. He was a protector and not afraid of new things or new people. He spoke Spanish well and wasn't afraid to ask what to do or where to go. I hid behind his lead, and he showed me amazing places and experiences. Our travels together included a month traveling around Europe, including seeing his papa's Austrian hometown. Dominican Republic, where he took lessons for windsurfing, again with Papa. A road trip to Banff with Lane and Michelle. Rock climbing in Squamish, Yosemite, Red Rocks, skiing in Canada and Tahoe, numerous Mexico vacations, scuba diving in Bali, Hawaii, and Antigua, and many, many camping trips in Yosemite and around the Pacific Northwest. We loved racing down ski slopes together, and we felt we'd finally met our match in a ski and snowboard partner. Our first summer of dating, he planned a 4-day backpacking trip to Yosemite and up the side of Half Dome. He was so prepared, and he made sure I had everything I needed. I knew then that he would be a remarkable partner in life. Like I said, he was a protector. He would later laugh that this was a test for me. I know it wasn't really true, but I was lucky to have passed anyway. And we knew we were a good fit for each other when we were caught in a sudden rainstorm while backpacking and spent 18 hours in a 2-person tent together. It was a lot of cribbage games. We loved our travels together, partly because it took us back to our true selves and away from all the pressures of trying to make it in this world. One last impact Jon had on my life was he constantly pushed me out of my comfort zone in places and areas I needed someone to. Of course, I didn't know this at the time, other than realizing it made life more fun. But over the 2 decades of him doing this, I'm a better person for it. Essentially, he taught me to not care so much what others thought, and to do something because it was fun, even if nobody else was doing it, and to slow down and live in the moment. Trust me, I have a long way to go. But Jon was pretty expert at this. In fact, in college, one assignment the class was given was to go against a social norm and see what happens. He chose to go to all of his classes without a shirt on that day. There's no way I would have had the guts to do that. I am inherently the work hard now, play later person, and he is the let's enjoy this moment and the rest will be gotten to person. He dragged me out on the dance floor when there was no dance floor. There's a picture of it up there. He'd take me away camping or an overnight getaway just to get me away from the house and my constant to-do list. He'd make a romantic date night set up for a regular midweek dinner. Not only was Jon a protector, he was a supporter and the biggest cheerleader of those he loved. When I was sad, he'd run out and get me a bouquet of flowers and a card saying he believed in me. He did this like clockwork over and over again. Or he'd surprise me with flowers on a random Tuesday. He'd call me multiple times a day and tell me he loved me. He called them drive-by I love yous. And he always insisted I walk on the inside of the sidewalk and him on the street side, even in our quiet neighborhood. He'd make a big deal of a small accomplishment of mine or anyone else's. And if he did that with a small accomplishment, he showed up even bigger with a larger challenge. When I bought my practice and when my office went through a fire and a rebuild, it was Jon who held me and told me it would be okay and that we'd get through this too, and that he would do anything he could to help. He also wholeheartedly backed anybody's passion or new business adventure and marketed it to anybody he talked to. He would certainly know how to make children feel special. I'm sure there's many here who have had him beg for high fives, and it was his goal to get them from the most unwilling. You can see from the slideshow today how much he loved babies and children, and he often proclaimed that he would get baby fever. When picking up the kids from school, he'd scoop up Jack and Gabby with big open arms and swing them around. I even had 2 separate teachers I didn't know later tell me that it made them so happy to see how over the top he greeted Jack and Gabby, and they thought they were so lucky to have him. And on the flip side, what's funny was everybody, ourselves included, thought I would be the strict parent and Jon would be the pushover who'd give in to a sweet smile. Turns out we were all wrong, and he was the one who kept us on track and on schedule, and I always gave in to the kids. He was all for consistent rules and boundaries, and I was the go with the flow, figure it out as we go parent. He was the chef of the family, and over time learned to love cooking, especially when it was an excuse to have friends over. I would have never believed this years ago based on the contents of his fridge in his 20s, which consisted of only condiments and hot sauce. John's most proud achievement was being a father to Jack and Gabby. I never have seen him so content and happy, and he cherished every tiny moment with them. He turned walks into lion hunts and living room fortnights into elaborate builds, and there were many, many nights of camping in the backyard. His family music nights involved many ridiculous songs of his own creation, silly things like grilled cheese and Pete the Cat, and we loved it. He was Jack's backyard quarterback and Gabby's face painting canvas. He even went to Safeway in full Gabby face paint. Yeah. In college, John was once asked what his biggest goal in life was, and he answered, to have a successful family. I know he achieved this goal, and he was so proud to be Jack and Gabby's dad. He also worked very hard to provide for us, and he was really taken off in his real estate career. Now, months later, it's a comfort for me that I see John in both Jack and Gabby. Gabby has his eyes and his goofiness, and Jack has his easygoing and funny personality, and they both have the ability to come up with song lyrics about most anything. John loved to be silly with them and made our everyday life adventurous. He loved in a big way with his whole heart and mind, as many of you felt from him. He wasn't afraid of showing people his love, and I think this made him different from anyone I'd ever met. In those last days in the hospital, I promised John all the things I'd carry on for myself, for the kids, all the things he taught me, and all the things he was always telling me to do. To live life more like him, John was always trying to push harder, to do better, to prove to others and himself that he had made it. I was always telling him that his role in our family and this world was just that he gave us all what we needed. I know that, and I believe he also knew it deep down. As a protector, a supporter, a person who loved with his whole heart and lived life in the moment, he taught us all how to be better and live better. I think the best thing we can do to honor John is to live out the things he taught us and that made him refreshingly different from anyone else. I want to thank each of you for adding to his life and for making him feel loved in return. And it shows by this amazing turnout just how many people love him. Thank you for being here today to show that love.
We now have time for open microphone if anyone would like to say anything about John for the family. Was that Eddie? Would anybody like to speak? I can bring the microphone to you.
Hello, everybody. I am John and Heather's friend, Neva. I don't have anything off the top of my head, but I did write something down, and I wanted to just, because I can't think up like this, so I'm just going to read what I wrote. And this is, we didn't know him very long, and I'm really sad about that because he was obviously an amazing guy. So this is what I wrote. John, I know you're listening, so here you go. I'll always think of John as a true light, a one-of-a-kind original, as genuine as they come, funny, creative, adventurous, a laugh that could spark a smile amidst tears, easy to talk to, a laugh out loud, musical, kind, and loving spirit who is larger than life, yet had this warm way of bringing you in, wrapping you up, and making you feel as if you were the most important person in the room. He was truly interested in what you had to say. At least he made you feel that way, and always had a story to tell. His stories brought you in, made you smile, laugh, and empathize. He wasn't afraid of being vulnerable, of being honest and open with how he felt. Being around him meant feeling comfortable with just being yourself, honest and open too, just like John. Being around John was like exhaling and relishing in the calm afterward. I wish we had known him earlier and for longer. We weren't as lucky as a lot of you, those who had gotten to spend more time with him. You were truly blessed. The world needs more Jon. Jon, you will continue rocking on wherever your next journey takes you. Thank you for blessing this world and those around you, and your innate ability to connect with the hearts of everyone around you, with your love of life, your free spirit, your love of music and creativity, and the ability to talk to anyone and make them feel like you're their oldest friend. Thank you for welcoming our quiet and reserved little boy into your world and teaching him how to play the guitar, and for making him feel safe at your. Ryan loved going to your house for guitar lessons and looked forward to rocking out with you and Jack after practice. He felt your calm, your passion for music, and for having fun, for always offering your help and support for those in need, for always being genuine and unapologetically yourself. Thank you, Jon. Jon, we will celebrate your life, your family, your legacy of love and friendship for the rest of our lives. Remembering you when we hear good, awesome music, have a good chat with friends, ski or hike in Tahoe, or when we see an awesome sunrise or sunset. We will honor you by being there for Heather, Jack, and Gabby as long as we can, and helping and supporting them and loving them always. We love you, Jon. Until we meet again, farewell up there and keep rocking on. We love you, Eggenbergers.
If my back towards anybody, I apologize. Is this on? My name is Beth. I'm a friend of Dan and Ginger, and I just felt I needed to share this with you in honor of Jon. I didn't know Jon very well. I've known them for 22 years, and I'll just backtrack quickly. I've been helping raise a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and the 5-year-old's presenting some problems, some behavioral problems, and I asked a friend who's been very successful at raising their child, and I said, what's the magic? What's the secret? How did you do it? And she said, Mike and I had 3 rules. Number 1, set a good example. Some of you may have heard this. Number 2, set a good example. And number 3, set a good example. And I can only think, not knowing Jon, that his parents have set an amazing example. Ginger took me under her wing when we first started working. I didn't know anything about ER nursing whatsoever, and she never gave up on me for 20 years. And Dan gave of himself. He's going to shoot me, I know, and he's never going to talk to me again, but if you look at what Jon has done for so many, call it for Father's Day and Mother's Day, well, Dan would do the most amazing things, and I'm thinking that that is the example that Jon watched and was able to give to all of you. Examples like coming down through snowstorms and picking me up 30 miles and driving back to the snowstorm and letting me work, and then driving me back down the hill. And numerous stories, my house was going to go on fire. He said, I'll be right over. And he came down 30 miles while they were evacuating the neighborhood. And luckily I didn't have to evacuate, but he was just there at that time. And I can just think of the phone calls on holidays, high holy holidays, and he would be the one and only person oftentimes that would say, happy whatever the holiday was. And I think that that's the example that Jon saw from his mom and dad. And I just know Jon just through what I've seen of his parents, and I just wanted to share that with you.
Hi, everybody. My cousin Jon up there. I've thought way too many times what I should say or if I should say anything when I got here. I got to FaceTime Jon as he was passing before, and I promised him a few things. I played him a lot of music. But I wanted to go over the promises that I made to him because I think we all did that a little bit, whether we did it in our heads or we did it to him while he was here, you know. My first promise was to care less what other people think. That's the only reason I'm talking right now. I always looked up to him, especially as a really little kid, spending lots of time with him with his guitar, with our toes in the sand. I always thought he was super cool. Like, I didn't ever think I was going to be as cool as Jon. And then do what makes me happy, like singing in the car and not settling and finding someone who loves me all the way. 3, always listen and stay in contact with others. I've heard a lot that he made phone calls, and if I didn't get to the phone, the first thing on the message was, "Hey Liz, just thought I needed to check in." He did a really good job of doing that with everyone, and I really appreciate that about him. My 4th promise was to be there for Jack and Gab as much as my life allows. Life gets really busy, we all know that, but I decided no more excuses with that after Jon's passing. 5, when Jon was passing away, I FaceTimed with Gabby while she was down in California, and she said something to me that stuck with me. She said to keep my color turned up. So I promised Jon that I would keep my color turned up for the kids younger than me and the people older than me and for anybody who really needs it. 6, something that I've heard unanimously is love unconditionally without limits. I think Jon taught every person in this room that in some way or another. And 7, he always told me, "Liz, just graduate college and get the hell out of the small town you grew up in." And having gone to France in November with the love of my life, and I'm graduating college on Thursday, I'm pretty proud to say, Jon, I did it. I'm doing it. So the last thing, which I'm pretty nervous for, I think everybody's had their own nerves, but in the tune that Jon would want it, I'm going to try to sing. I have never done this in front of anyone except my family in the car. In the tune of my number one promise is caring less what other people think and living a regretless life. This is for you, Cousin Jon, and I'm gonna play this song on my phone with me because I just can't do it without it. And if anybody knows it, it's Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the ukulele version. Please join in. This was one song that I played him when I was FaceTiming repeatedly, and it has been the song I listen to every time I miss him. Please, does anybody want to stand up and sing with me if you know this song? You got lyrics on your phone screen? No. Let me get the lyrics up so she can sing with me. I'm just gonna. Ad, sorry. YouTube. believe I'm doing this. Okay. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dreams that you dream of once in a life high, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of really do come true. Ooh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drop, high above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream. Why, oh why can't I, oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you'll find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, in the dreams that you dream to. Why, oh why can't I? Growing up, being a little kid, looking up to Jon, I refused to sing with him. I remember he would try and try and try, and on his wedding day, he tried to pull me out on the dance floor. I just want him to know how much I've grown with his passing and how much confidence thinking about what would Jon do. Like, I think about that a lot, and I just love him, and he's clearly so loved by all of you. So thanks for being here.
That is amazing. Jon's already changing the world, right? It's not, he's still here. I just can't let this day go by without saying something. I'm Annalise, or some of you might know me as Annie. I'm Heather's oldest sister. And I know not all of our family can speak, so I would just want to say something about him coming into our lives and him becoming a brother. And I can't hold it together today, so I'm going to read a little bit. Jon came bounding into my life in my early 20s. This new boyfriend of Heather's was exuberant and playful. And like everyone has said, so many hugs. And who was this curly blonde puppy dog who sat comfortably in our living room in the middle, crooning a love song on the first day that we met him. And just handing out nicknames like candy. Over the years, he won me over like he did all of us. What an open, eager heart. And I have to confess, I learned to love those, apparently this happened to all of us, these 9 a.m. workday phone calls that came at very inconvenient times that I often just said, and you would like what, Jon? I am Heather's sister. You know, we get to the point. I think that's probably why Jon came into our lives, because getting to the point isn't the point. I enjoyed the invitations to join him for those lake or stream swims, even though the frigid water was clearly only for crazy people. I was happy to have joined him on a hot air balloon ride that was way too expensive and probably shouldn't have been done, but I have the memories. And I do regret that when he called me and said that a Father's Day gift he'd like to give my dad was a group skydiving lesson. This was this year, or was it last year? I said that was crazy. I wish I had said yes. The point was, he thought of me as he thought of all of us. And he showed us what really matters, as all of you have said, spending time with friends, with his kids. He loved being a dad, his family, Heather. He loved you more than anything in the whole world. And I'm so glad you got to spend over 20 years with him. And taking on adventures and living life like the precious gift it is. Well, Jon, I can't tell you how honored I am that I was in your circle and that you thought of me. And I hope you know that I think of you too every day. I miss you, you crazy puppy, and my brother.
Waiting for a moment when I could be more composed, but maybe that won't come. I'm Heidi, Heather's sister and Annie's sister as well. And I just basically want to echo everything that's been said, and I'm sure everything that we're all feeling together. I remember meeting Jon at college when Heather drove him over to my dorm, and he jumped out of the car, and I was like, wow, you are so full of life. And it's true, he just brought life alive for us and our family. When they moved up here to Everett, we got to have our bond be closer as we had kids that were similar ages. And he was someone that would always call, and he would always be a cheerleader. And I'm grateful for him sharing those journeys with us. And when he came into our family, just welcomed us with open arms and was a brother to us. And I was thinking about what I wanted to share. I love hearing the stories. And one story was we had a cat that got, one of our cats that got stuck up a tree. And I thought, who do I call? I call Jon. And he told me, we tried to coax it down, just get a hose and spray it out of the tree. And I'll talk to your kids and I'll tell them it'll be okay. I'm grateful to be a witness to what a wonderful father and husband he was. He would call and tell, or look for ideas and tell me ideas of how they'll celebrate birthdays and anniversaries. And he was a great uncle to my kids. I asked them each if they had something that they would want to share that I could tell. And Daniel said that he taught him how to throw a football. He shared his favorite spot on a river with us and helped him cross a river and skip rocks. Amelia said that he was an everybody person. He connected with everyone, encouraged, and was their cheerleader. Abby remembered the hugs, high fives, and knuckles. Charlotte remembered he would always be including her and inviting her over to play. And just always watching out for everyone. Grateful for Jon and all the lessons that he taught us to bring life alive and to live it in the moment and to enjoy each moment and to connect with each other. So thank you, Jon.
I'm Gabby, and I remember that one time we did FaceTime, and he went to the grocery store, but first he forgot to take it off.
Thank you.
Was that Eddie's hand going up? He.
Hi, my name is Nori, and I just thought that Jon was such an amazing person, and he was so kind, and that he was just someone I really, really cared for.
Hi, my name's Eric. I'm going to keep pacing back and forth so I can kind of keep it together. I have a unique experience of being with Jon, and no disrespect, I am his oldest friend. And I mean by age. So you have to understand the chronology here. I was Jon's age when I played with them in TMA. So as a corny kind of comparison, I'm struck today by the fact that I was involved in a point in his life, if he were a song, that I got to hear the early sketches of what that song was going to be. And then I look out here and I go, holy cow, this is what he wrote. And this is pretty freaking awesome. They used to joke about me in the band because clearly I'm quite a bit older. So the joke was anything that could be, and especially him, about my age. So my favorite retort to any one of their jokes was, you hope that you rock it as much as I do when you're my age. Well, I'm here to tell you, he rocked it, okay? You did, buddy. You rocked it.
I'm just going to stare at you too. Micah. Anybody else from the boss? We can leave this slide up for 1 minute. Stick to the script. In my early Hawaii days, it passed. John would just come out and stay for a week or two with me. He'd write music and just play on the beach. He'd literally sit on the beach all day while I was at work. He liked to do that. I'd work and he'd play. But I'd come home to this new finger picking that rivaled anything that I'd ever heard. Hearing Andy play it today was awesome. All right, so this is one of the many pictures from our tropical days where he would just play for hours on end. And one day I came home. One thing we didn't talk a lot about today is John loved to apologize. Like, hey, buddy, big hug. And then he'd start with, like, I'm sorry for this. So he did nothing wrong, but he loved to apologize. So I came home one day, and he'd been playing on the beach, writing music for hours, and he wanted to show me what he'd played, but he was just overwhelmed and almost in tears. And he'd taken my guitar down to the beach, which I never played because I'm mediocre. And he'd sat there for hours. And science, as an English major, I don't know what you're great at besides English. And science was not his strong suit. So he was sitting on the beach playing for hours, and he didn't even realize that the tide had come up. He'd been sitting there so long playing his songs. And so he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, man. I was so into what I was playing, I didn't even see it. I'm like, see what? He's like, this wave came up and it took your guitar. And I was like, how does that happen? Like, only John. Now, he had the guitar, so he's sitting there, and so I didn't really get it. He's like, I shook out all the sand. I'm going to dry it out. I'm so sorry. This is like an Oscar Schmidt, like $150 guitar. Best guitar I ever played, but, like for him, it's like bottom of the barrel. And he was just sitting there, and he just, like, that was John. He'd just been lost in the moment. And so that wave overcomes us, and we're good, and we move beyond it. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? He's like, what? I'm like, did you put on sunblock? He's like, yeah, I put it on in the morning. You know your ancestry, dude. You put it on like every hour on the hour and stay in the shade. So he's like lobster red, like red. And the gun show shirt, he's wearing that every day in Hawaii. And so he's bright red in a white shirt with 2 orange arrows saying 2 tickets to the gun show. And I'm like, 2 tickets to the dumb show. Like, you are so on fire. And so he would successively molt, and then like the next day he'd go back out. He goes, you can't burn twice. And he'd hold his arms out. I'm thinking, maybe you can't if you're that red. And then he'd always be like, golden brown. And he'd go home to Heather. We were sharing this story, and then Heather would like shake out the molt from the sheets for the next couple of weeks. And those are the memories that I love. He's one of the first of our friends to have kids. He showed us the way. We're all fortunate enough to see that he had that pure love, his commitment to children, like not just his children, but all of our children. His dedication to being the best father, his spirited, endless love, his patience and his joy, his presence and attention with kids. We know the difference with emotional intelligence, who's present with children and who isn't, and who's patient with them and who isn't, and John was all of that. So it's great for us to have that as an example. He inspires me daily to be brighter, lighter, and simply happier. So thank you to everybody for being here today. I can't articulate it properly, but this group means so much to me, the family, to one another. And we all just wanted to be here to share in our love for John, to celebrate Johnny Spoons. John, boy, whatever you called him, he had like 19 names, and everyone you met, he'd give himself a different nickname, and he had so many names. I met him as John, and then we called him John Boy in our family, and then he's with Johnny Spoons, and there were so many different fun names with him. I loved it. So thank you to everybody. I know we all wanted to be here, from the Incline Village crew, his first band, Stereotype. You can look them up. You'll find nothing, but they were incredible. They opened up at Incline Beach. I think it was the 4th of July. I'd come up here and I'd see the UW crew. It was awesome. From Fifth Avenue to Sandpoint Way to going down to the Pyramid. I don't know if you guys know how much free beer I got there. He would work, and I would just sit there and drink free beer. So thank you very much, Pyramid. I don't think I'm the reason it went under. I support it. But then we'd take growlers over to the morning after. I was the only roadie they never wanted. I would sit there at their practice, and I would drink It was just awesome. I don't have a drinking problem. But it was just awesome to be there with them. The Snohomish crew. I mean, I went to a dental prom with Heather and John, and yeah, that's a thing. And so it's incredible, these experiences that you have with one another, and you have them through John and Heather and the family. So thank you so much for being here. An administrative note, but please stay and visit. I know we have a ton more to share. Heather and the family would love for people to sign the memory book in the back. And there's some memory boxes. Just write down your memory on the card and put it in the box. It would mean a lot to be able to share those with one another. So thank you again for being here for John and his family. Live life to its absolute fullest. We have this just one wild and precious life. Live a little more like John every day. And thank you very much for celebrating John.
Yes.
Wait, so was that the microphone?
Microphone. This is a Bluetooth microphone for that recording, which is still recording.
Oh, yeah, nice. Well, I didn't